After completing Module 5, you should be able to discuss the history of physical activity and public health, and how science is translated into practice in physical activity and public health. First, I would like to review the two terms of public health and physical activity. Public health is a field that encompasses many disciplines in an effort to promote and protect health and prevent disease and disability in defined populations and communities. Physical activity is defined as all movement that is produced by the contraction of skeletal muscle and that substantially increases energy expenditure. Then, what do you think of when you read the phrase physical activity and public health? By definition, physical activity and public health is a field of study that looks at the health effects and risks of physical activity, physical inactivity, causes of these problems, and ways to promote and maintain healthy physical activity throughout life. An understanding of the evolution of the field of physical activity and public health can come from learning how the two fields of exercise science and public health science evolved independently in the 20th century. Epidemiology, initially developed to help people understand how to identify and prevent infectious disease such as cholera and tuberculosis prior to 1900, has evolved to address contemporary health burdens as well, such as heart diseases, cancers, motor vehicle accidents, and air pollution. Major advances in epidemiology also occurred in the 20th century with the emergence of new study designs and observational techniques to assess health outcomes, particularly those related to chronic diseases and populations. The conditions were ripe in the 20th century for the two fields of exercise science and public health to come together. In fact, such a merger began with the publication of a study conducted in London in 1953. Dr. Morris was interested in heart disease and its causes and consequences, and he chose study workers employed by the London transport system. Then, what was the unique way Dr. Morris combined the areas of physical activity and public health? Dr. Morris studied London double-decker bus drivers and conductors to determine the incidence of coronary disease and found that the sedentary bus drivers were more likely to have heart disease than the conductors who walked all day taking tickets. In detail, a popular form of public transportation in London in the late 1940s and 1950s was the legendary double-decker bus. Hundreds of these buses operated throughout the city. Although similar buses operate in London today, in the 1950s there were no computers, magnetic card readers, or other conveniences on buses that we know today. Dr. Morris was able to separate the mean he was studying into two groups: the bus drivers who were inactive all day long because they were sitting and driving the buses, and the conductors who were walking all day up and down the stairs of the buses taking tickets from riders. As we can tell from the figure, Morris found that the physically active conductors had significantly lower rates of coronary heart disease than the less active drivers. Although these findings may seem very straightforward now, at the time they were quite revolutionary. As the shift in the paradigm had begun as physical activity for health began to be placed alongside exercise for performance. The exercise/heart hypothesis studied by Dr. Morris, now more of a fact than a hypothesis, essentially was that people who exercised more frequently had healthier, better functioning circulatory systems than similar people who did not exercise. Dr. Morris went on to publish further studies of occupational physical activity, such as physical activity that results from the job one performs, and is widely considered today as the grandfather of the field of physical activity and health. Following Morris, the trailblazer was Dr. Ralph S. Paffenbarger Jr. from the U.S. Dr. Paffenbarger was trained in medicine and studied infectious diseases early in his career. He set out to improve our understanding of the exercise/heart hypothesis from a public health point of view. He studied San Francisco longshoremen and college alumni. He compared the health status of people who were physically active in their jobs or in their leisure time with those who were inactive, and he consistently showed that active people were healthier and lived longer. Thus was born the field of physical activity and public health. Into the 1970s and 1980s, observational studies of physical activity and health outcomes continued to emerge. Researchers began to quantify the substantial health benefits of physical activity. Last week we listed some of the benefits in Chapter 2. Moreover, during this time it became clear that many people throughout the world were not physically active at levels that could reduce their risk of disease, disability, or both. Populations and not just individuals were not as healthy as they could be because of the sedentary lifestyle. Suddenly an exercise and performance problem became a physical activity and public health problem. This process can be demonstrated by the figure on this slide. With the scientific cooperation of exercise science and epidemiology taking hold, additional disciplines begin to focus on physical activity and health. Specifically, in the 1950s, population studies were added to the picture in addition to exercise science and public health science. In the 1990s, behavioral sciences and environmental health sciences were also added to the picture. In other words, in addition to the scientific cooperation of these two fields of exercise science and public health, additional disciplines begin to focus on physical activity and health. So far, population studies, behavioral sciences, and environmental health sciences were added. Behavioral sciences begin to explore the determinants of physical activity and inactivity and to investigate how inactive people could adopt and maintain healthier behaviors. Environmental health sciences more recently have begun to explore the role that place and the built environment play in encouraging or discouraging physical activity behaviors. Taken together, a new subdiscipline, physical activity and public health, has emerged. Here are the 2 response questions for Module 5. What is the exercise/hard hypothesis? What was the unique way Dr. Morris combined the areas of physical activity and public health?